So what's the most important area of a business that either contributes or takes away from the brand identity that a company wants to share with their public and their people? Very simple. It's communication. So today I'm going to be talking about communication, and particularly how it determines what a a company communicates, what they communicate to whom, and how they communicate, and when they communicate with the public or their staff. So there's four primary areas that we're going to look at. Detailed communication plans is the first one. Second one is the organizational structure and how do you approach communication within that structure. And then internal and external audiences. Excuse me. Got a frog. All right. And then finally, social media plans for your communication processes, which seems to be catching on and demanding more of your time as an executive. So who am I to be talking about this? I'm Voss Graham. I am the organizational architect for Interactive Consulting Group in Memphis, Tennessee. I have over 50 years of business experience. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly through my years in the finance, banking world, commercial lending, also turnaround work, putting dysfunctional companies back together, and then working with healthy corporations as I ran my own business for 36 years, putting them to, working with them to grow their people, grow their revenues, and to increase the effectiveness of their leaders. So let's dive in and start talking about all this. First off, detailed communication plan. Now, if you're a real small company, detailed communication plans may be a stretch for you, but as you grow in size and you add more and more people to your organization, as you climb into the 100 plus and 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people on your team, well, you better have a communication plan. And even for small companies, you need to have an idea of exactly what you're going to communicate and how you're going to use it. Now, look, communication plans are pretty simple. In the big picture, you need to consolidate it down and create action items relative to what needs to be done to create the identity for your brand that you desire the public to see and know and trust. I mean, it's all about your credibility. So, sometimes people don't realize the power of public relations or press releases. These are opportunities to share case studies and to communicate the results that you drive for your customers and clients or patients. And it's a critical piece of the communication plan. Is also how you go about developing larger plans of action, particularly in a crisis, or if a company gets slammed. How do you overcome that? What issues do you, or what communication processes do you use? Do you hide in a hole, stick your head in the sand, or do you come out and make statements that are not defensive, yet sharing reality and being real, and therefore more credible? I mean, sometimes you have to even admit your mistakes. Jesus, I've made enough to last somebody a lifetime. Yet it's all about recovery from adversity and just keep going. And communication plans help you master that skill. Now, organizational structure is another one. The bigger your organization is, the more you have to pay attention to the how do you communicate within the company? Do you have internal newsletters? Do you have external newsletters? Do you have regular departmental or team meetings to share the goals, the outcomes, and the objectives that are being met by the organization? In fact, there was a movement afoot for a long time called the open book management, where the employees were always in the know of what actually was going on. So that had to be communicated in such a way that they understood the good and the bad, of the situation and what needed to be done in order to get buy-in, engagement, and participation in whether it was a recovery or a growth market. Now, internal and external audiences, again, I'm kind of mixing these up a little bit as far as what can go on. Internal, what's interesting is I have, for years, one of my number one opportunities to educate companies and basically every functional group that was in an organization from Fortune 500s all the way down to the entrepreneurial regional companies was communication style awareness. This is something that is usually overlooked. We just assume that people know how to communicate. Surprise, surprise, that is not so. Even in internal actions, you need to have clear understanding of communication style so people are not offended when the style that maybe a manager has conflicts with one of their staff or direct reports or another functional area. Communication style awareness is like a key lock for the organization to open up people, to allow them to understand what is going on as far as people and agendas and how they talk about things, how they write up reports, what is important, what's not important, how they needed to be communicated with, as well as the ways not to communicate. And these are all addressed in communication style awareness, or the workshop that I've taught for 20 years is effective communication for results, and that can be sales teams results, executive results, R&D team results. There's all forms of results, but the baseline, the fundamentals, the foundation is always communication style awareness. Once you have that in place through your internal structure, then it's easier for people to communicate even with their external audiences. And external audiences is customers, peers, suppliers, key advisors, etc., even outsourced companies. I mean, communication is the key. And we all have communication processes, but the question is the communication process effective? And by effective, I mean, is the message that you're sending to someone else, is it being received as the message you actually sent, or is it being decoded and interpreted totally different relative to the intent of your message? And this is what happens when you do not have a communication style awareness within your organization. So communication, to me, is one of the most critical points that you must address as a leader within your organization. And again, I said it's like one of the number one processes that we have used through the years is to educate people on communication style awareness. And it's a simple process. It's not time consuming, and it can lead to breakthroughs in teamwork, team building, cross-functional team building. Even the executive team needs to be aware of communication style because that's how they communicate. Everybody does this. So external audiences, I mean, you can use the communication style awareness also. Particularly, I know we've done a ton of this work in sales where the salespeople have to understand who they're talking to make sure that the offer is being acceptable to the person who's receiving the information or the offer. So it's just another key component. But external audiences, you've got to reach out and make sure that they're getting the right information relative to what your company does, how you do it, what's your vision, etc. And you can do that with the public relations where you're constantly putting information. Remember, customers as well as peers, it's all about top of mind awareness. Top of mind. You only get to top of mind status when people know who you are and can recognize the name. And, when it was interesting, when I first started in business, it didn't take but about 5 touches and people remembered who you were and what you did and all about your company. Well, that's changed. Now it's up above 12 touches just before they can cut through all the distractions and the noise in the marketplace to figure out who the heck are you and what do you represent? What do you do? What do you offer? People do not know that unless you communicate. And I've been guilty of some really bad practices as far as not communicating with my clients all of the tools that we use and have available to help them deliver results. Oftentimes, after the fact, I learned that they were doing something that we do quite regularly. And that was very frustrating to me, but that was my own fault. I had to take responsibility for that and start communicating with these, particularly my clients, what all we did do. That's good English. Anyway, all right. And then social media plans. This is a critical component today, particularly with the movement to the social media. I know Facebook got billions of people online all day long. They're spending up to an hour to 2 hours on Facebook. Well, it's a good place to hang out. Also, LinkedIn is for business and professionals, and particularly for finding people who want to be employed at your organization. I know several of my clients use LinkedIn extensively for the hiring process. And see, that's a social media, but you need to have a plan and then communicate that plan throughout the organization, because there's a couple of rules. You cannot go in and deny something that is happening, or you build a following of people, clients particularly, who will go in and defend you without you having to say anything as a company. I mean, even though you should get on there and respond to any negative comments. I know there's Yelp and all. I mean, the social media world keeps growing in leaps and bounds as far as specialty groups and specialty media. But you need to be able to have a plan. Personally, I focus on 3 primary: LinkedIn, Facebook business pages, and YouTube. And those 3 are the main channels that I use. Now, some people are also using podcasts because there seems to be a growing number of people who will spend the time listening to a podcast audio while driving their cars to and from work, or using it as an educational process as they subscribe to different masters, gurus, etc., relative to certain products or industries. So this is a fairly new concept, and it's picking up speed, though, like light speed. I mean, it is moving fast. Social media plans have to be developed and clearly communicated. How often do you have it? Do you have someone dedicated to that activity, or do you outsource it? It's okay to outsource this if the people know what they're doing. And there are rules relative to all of these social media plans as far as what each platform will allow and not allow relative to communication. So with that, please leave a comment below. This is the 14th part of my series on major business processes. It's been an honor to share all this information with you, and I look forward to comments and questions as to what you want to hear about in the future. I know the future I will go to shorter videos just to help you focus in on a specific topic when you spend the time with me and listening to what I have to say. I'm not presenting myself as some kind of celebrity or guru. However, I've got 50 years of business experience. There's not too much that I haven't seen in the good, the bad, and the ugly lines of business and leadership and things that companies do. All right. So thank you for your time. You take care. Have a great weekend. Bye now.